Good evening, everyone, and welcome to those watching online as well as those in the council chambers. I call the August 10th meeting to order at 7 p.m. First order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Administration, do you have any additions or deletions?
No additional items, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council? Not seeing any. Could I get a motion for acceptance of the agenda? Councillor Olford?
I'll move to accept the agenda as presented.
Read on the motion. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We have our first order of business is our delegation, and tonight we're welcoming Kevin Hallett as a presentation for our Council Remuneration Committee report. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. Good evening. So I was the chair for the Council Remuneration Committee, and I believe we've all had a chance to read our report and findings at this point in time. So we had split it up into seven main components. The honorariums for council and mayor, the per diems, travel and expense, technology, benefits, another category, and the mayor's position being full-time or part-time. So a quick summary on the honorariums. With our review, we would recommend that honorariums are increased to the 75th percentile of the comparable communities as completed by the contractor. Per diems also increased to the 75th percentile. This works out to $135 for the half day, $255 for the full day. Travel and expense, no major changes there except for moving sundry, which was unused and didn't really add any value, so it was easier just to clean it up and get rid of it. Technology, we would recommend that increase in the technology expense to $100 per month, $1,200 per year. Specifically with the position of mayor, if a phone is provided, that will be reduced to $600 and the full cost of the phone will be covered. Benefits, in review of the benefits, we do not have any changes to recommend. Recommend they stay as is. And other, we would suggest and recommend that a health spending allowance in the amount of $425 per year, which aligns with the provision for town employees, also be granted to council. For the mayor's position, based on the data that we reviewed, we recommend that the mayor's position remain part-time, but you're free to work all the unpaid overtime you choose. So in general, our theme of our review was kind of alignment. A lot of our suggestions were to line up with the town. Like the town employees, the goal is to reach 75th percentile of comparable communities. It seemed, I don't know if unfair or unusual would be the right word, for the leaders to go below that. So, and a lot of with the benefits align with the town, health spending align with the town. It just seemed to make sense for us. For the technology expense, that was one that we did recommend an increase on. Just acknowledging that you guys are working from home, and it should not be the job should not be a financial burden. So this is to help with some of the costs of working from home. Increase your internet speed, data usage. You're doing 10,000 Zoom meetings, because I don't think those are ever going away now. And we would ask in your review that you be objective. So it's less that you would be giving yourself a raise, because this doesn't take effect until after the election. So you're doing this hiring for a position. Think about it as though you were hiring for a position in the town instead of your own positions. That would be one thing I would like to encourage you guys to do. Because it'd be really tough to stand up there, and especially in light of some of the economic challenges that we faced over the last couple of years, to say, let's pay this position more. But you would if it was a position working for the town. So just hopefully that'll sway you. Did you guys have any questions about any of our recommendations?
Council, any questions or comments? Councilor Powell.
Just one comment. Thank you so much for this thorough review. I really enjoyed it.
You're welcome. CEO Thompson, did you want to?
Yeah, the committee did an outstanding job, and we were very pleased with our consultants, Hillcrest Financial, that undertook the compensation review. Council has a copy of that document, it's very thorough, and so I think it all came together, and there's a great job by all. What we're looking for tonight is with council direction in these 7 items. And then we'll come back with a council remuneration compensation policy for formal adoption based on the numbers or this information that's provided tonight.
I'm sorry, are you asking us to enter into a discussion regarding this report tonight?
Well, Your Worship, we need direction on this so that we can bring back the policy. And the policy contains all the information that we're providing tonight. So we need to bring back that policy at some point prior to the election. So we're looking for direction of council so that we can move forward with that.
So normally that would not be done during the during this section of the meeting. Did you want to add another section under business?
We can, Your Worship. That was an oversight. My apologies. We are seeking direction so that we can complete that policy. Or we can bring it back to the next meeting if that's council's desire as well. As long as we have it wrapped up prior to election.
So council, this is not our normal procedure. Would council prefer this to be brought forward at the next meeting, or are you willing to accept it as an additional item in tonight's meeting?
I'm prepared to accept it as an additional item in tonight's meeting.
Me too. Does any councillor object to that because it is against our procedural bylaw? If not seeing any, if we could bring this back under under 6.1, and that way, Kevin, if you're able to stay, you'd be able to answer any questions that we might have at that point.
For sure.
So we will add that in at this point under 6.1.
My apologies for any confusion on Your Worship.
We'll get you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Our next item of business is business arising from the minutes. 5.1 is a land acknowledgement. This was brought forward by Council Stenby. Administration also provided background for it. Who is going to speak on this?
Councillor Stenby, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council Stenby.
Okay, well, I wasn't prepared to speak on this, but I absolutely can. As we are all aware, I brought forward a notice of motion to include a Treaty 6 land acknowledgement at the beginning of every council meeting. We have already been doing it, but the mayor wished that this come forward as a motion from council so that it is a little more succinct, and it will follow through to the next council as well. So the motion that is in front of us speaks to that, as well as having it included in our procedural, I believe the procedural bylaw, yes, the procedural bylaw. So the administrative recommendations are in front of us if anyone wishes to go ahead with them.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions or comments regarding the information item in front of us? Councillor Alford.
What I know it says it here was determined that a workshop would be initiated after the summer break. Do we have any timelines on that?
Not specifically. We're hoping to have something in September. You know, through the research that we did, we understand that over the course of summer, it's very hard to secure somebody to do that. So we are working towards having it in September. We don't have a firm date at this time.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Bell?
Thank you. I'm prepared to move portion 1 of the administrative recommendation, simply because if we do proceed forward with education in September, that's not to say that the acknowledgement that's decided on tonight could not be amended in the future, and therefore I believe it's important that we begin this now. So I'm prepared to move council begin each regular council meeting going forward with a thoughtful Treaty 6 land acknowledgement. And then my friendly amendment would be to add in the standing committee
And standing committee?
meetings.
Yeah, I'm fine with the friendly
Is
amendment.
that acceptable friendly amendment to everyone? Okay. Did administration get that friendly amendment? Debate on the motion? All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. There's a second part to the recommendations. Deputy Mayor?
I'll move that council direct administration to amend the council procedural bylaw to include the Treaty 6 land acknowledgement at the start of each council meeting.
Thank you. Debate on that motion? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you for that. Moving on to business. We will move back to our Remuneration Committee. CEO Thompson?
Thank you, Your Worship. As previously stated, we have the council remuneration and compensation policy that is reviewed at this time each year. And so with the findings and the recommendations brought forward by the committee, we're looking at council's direction so that we can prepare that document to bring back to a future council meeting.
So is it your wish for us to go through each point that you have in the recommendation and vote on each of those?
Yes, Your Worship, please.
Just adjusting my,
So the honorariums, as recommended by the committee, is at the 75th percentile. And those amounts are indicated there, as well as in the supporting document provided by the consultant. And I think the rationale provided by Mr. Hallett is very sound. And moving forward in that recommendation, and so we would be pleased to take any direction from council relative to that.
so I think just to facilitate matters a little bit easier, we will, after each item, ask if council wishes to make that motion and then move on to the next item within that report. So does anyone on council wish to either make a motion to accept, amend, or reject? Councillor Stanley?
So on the first one, I do have a comment for anyone who is watching. I will be making this motion. I'm in favor of it, specifically for the reasons that I did not run for council for the income. But I think that there are a lot of amazing people in our community who are holding back from running for council because there is a time commitment, a considerable time commitment that is attached to it, that in a lot of instances requires someone to potentially alter their full-time work hours or potentially quit their full-time job in order to put their name forward for council or mayor. So in that regard, seeing as we have an election coming up and this would not be effective until after the election and therefore does not affect me at this moment, it is not me giving myself a raise, it is me trying to secure good councillors and a great mayor for the next election, I will make the motion that council increase honorariums to the 75th percentile at a monthly rate of $4,980 for the mayor and $2,369 for councillors.
Thank you for that. Is there any debate or questions on that motion? Councillor Hoover?
No debate, just comments. I wanted to recognize the fact that this council has discussed on an annual basis the council remuneration. And as a council, we have been quite conservative, with the exception of adjusting the council remuneration to compensate for the fact that there's no longer a tax break that's given to municipal officials that used to. We've rejected giving ourselves a raise for this, but the fact is the demands for councillors in Blackfalds has increased as the population has increased. The issues that we deal with, even in a small municipality like Blackfalds, is essentially just as demanding as it is being part of a city that's larger. We have to deal with all the same issues that larger municipalities do, and as Councillor Stendy mentioned, that can be a significant amount of work and a significant learning curve for the council. And recognizing that it is a lot of responsibility and a lot of work, and the fact that we do want to attract people for these positions that are committed, that are willing to put the time in that maybe they wouldn't otherwise if we didn't keep up with the times. And this committee that looks at this every 4 years has told us more than once that we are conservative as a municipality when it comes to remuneration is for our council. So just so the public is aware that we have essentially been lagging behind, I think, a lot of municipalities in terms of giving ourselves, well, we haven't been giving ourselves raises, but we want to ensure that the future councils for the municipality are well recognized for their work.
Thank you. Any further comments? Not seeing any. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried unanimously. Point 2. Councillor Powell?
Thank you. I would like to make a motion, acknowledge the administrative recommendation that the mayor position remain as part-time status.
Debate or comments on that? All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. That the per diem rate be increased to $135 for a half day and $255 for a full day. Councillor Hoover?
I will make the motion.
Debate on the motion. Deputy Mayor?
Okay, so I am not in favor of this. I find that if you divide it by 8 or divide by 4, the rate of pay is quite high. It works out to about $33 an hour, and a lot of jobs you don't even make that. So I think it should be remained at what we have it at now. And if the next council has prominent business people in it, then it should be up to them. Then the next year after the election, if they want this to go through or not. I just think it's too high.
Further comments? Councillor Powell?
Thank you. I honestly would disagree simply because I work out of town, the time that it takes me to leave work in order to attend an event. Typically, I'm either gone far more than half a day or a full day at work. So I know that for me, it doesn't make sense to be significantly underfunded for what I can do at work when that is my full-time job. So I agree with the increases.
Councillor Taylor?
So could I pose this question back to the committee? What were their findings in comparison to the per diem rates as Blackfalds to other municipalities?
They were pretty close. This is not to increase to the 75th percentile in terms of actual dollars. It's what, $10? It's not very much in actual dollars. And it would just align with the remuneration at the 75th percentile of comparable communities. So in terms of an actual increase, it's quite minor. And we felt that it was a good recognition of the need for potential childcare or taking time off work where you may or may not be paid for it to do council duties. You guys have lots to do, and it really depends on your individual schedules. And with sort of Councillor Stendy's comments on attracting new council members who may not otherwise be able to do it, there can be a single parent out there who really would like to join council, but you got to babysit for some of these events, and that costs money. So the idea is to not, once again, you guys do a very important job. The job should not financially burden you, and that's what the increase in per diems is to help address.
So just in summary, it's a $15 increase for both half day and full day. Or that's being provided.
Councillor Cindy?
So I do actually just want to make a comment based off of my own personal circumstances, having 4 children and having to get childcare frequently in order to attend. As for your comment in regards to potentially a single parent wanting to run, at one point in time, this council did look at an item that I requested to come forward, which was a childcare policy, which would have taken care of those parents who need childcare, and it was unfortunately voted down. I would hope and urge the next council to maybe relook at that, as I think that that would be a better way to deal with that particular situation than a per diem rate increase, which would affect all of council. Because I do think that that specific problem, that need for childcare, is something that across Canada right now is being addressed from one job to another, federally, provincially, and I don't think that our municipality should be any different, and it should be looked at again. That said, I agree. I don't think that there is a real reason for a per diem rate increase, as I have found it to be a considerable amount. That again, unless you're in that top earning type of a position, it would be more than your actual wage for most people. So I will not be in favor of that.
Further comments? Just like to make the one comment regarding the suggestion that the council would relook at this in a year's time. The purpose of this review is to eliminate the possibility and the need for council to relook at.
I think you're misunderstanding me.
Oh, no, this is Deputy Mayor's, sorry, I'm referring to Deputy Mayor's statement. And to get back on track, you were suggesting that the council might look at it in the next year if they found that that was not enough. And I believe the purpose of this committee is to eliminate the need for council to come back and review remunerations. Deputy Mayor?
We did have an increase in per diems this council in the middle of council. I can't remember if it was year 2 or year 3. So there was a raise increase at some point. So it will eventually come back, and there might be a raise at the next council.
Councillor Taylor?
I think, was that not the raise that we had because we were now being taxed?
Yes.
That had nothing to do, it wasn't a raise, it was an equalization. It wasn't a raise per se.
Councillor Hoover?
I wanted to somewhat echo what Councillor Appel was stating. I realize that for some people, this per diem rate, if you're simply working, if you're working for someone else and making a typical salary, this is on a reasonably high end. However, myself, I'm self-employed, and I don't work as regularly. I don't have a regular salary. My pay as a self-employed person comes in larger lump sums that occasionally the commitments as a counselor have interrupted that, and missing one day can mean the equivalent of 2 or 3 days of what would have made, or 2 or 3 times what I make as a counselor for that. So we have to keep in consideration that not everybody is making an hourly wage. There are people that are contractors, that are self-employed, that work sporadically, and this commitment does have an impact on whether they have the ability to keep those earnings on a sporadic basis. So, and Councillor Stenny did mention that the fact that childcare as a factor is kind of on its own its own issue. I don't believe that this increase is to compensate for those who specifically need childcare, and that's something that future councils should maybe consider whether or not there's a way to compensate people for those. But there are a lot of different types of employment out there, whether it's self-employment or working for others, that if you compare this per diem rate, that this is not necessarily an outrageous amount to compensate someone for their time.
Worship of Council, we just wanted to point out the fact that the information that was provided through the review relative to the per diems indicated that per diem rates provided to council is less than the provincial government's per diem rates, and those rates have been frozen for a number of years. So, so what's being recommended is well in line with the provincial government. We're still less than the provincial government.
Further comments? Not seeing any, we will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that was just carried. Number 5, the internet, Number 4, the council travel rates and expenses remain the same and sundry expenses be removed. Deputy Mayor?
I'll move that council travel rates and expense remain the same and that sundry expenses be removed.
Made on the motion? All in favor? In favor? That is carried unanimously. Number 5, internet reimbursement rate increases to 100. Councillor Appel?
Certainly, I would love to move that the internet reimbursement rates increase to $100 per month. Keeping in mind that we're calling it internet reimbursement rates, but we also have cell phones that we reach at multiple hours a day, often not during normal business hours. So it's called internet reimbursement, but it is so much more.
Councillor Hoover?
And I would just add to that, things like printing and whatnot. I think a lot of us do end up printing items at home, and that has a significant cost to them. And so this maybe it should be called technology reimbursement rate as opposed to internet.
Is that a friend?
I would certainly say that just for clarity, it would be better if the amendment called this technology.
Would that create any difficulty in the policy?
Yes, we will, Your Worship.
It will not create any difficulty? Just
No, we
changing
won't
the name?
create difficulty. We'll change that to technology like we have it. Yeah.
Is everybody in agreement that's a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried unanimously. Number 6, healthcare benefits remain as they stand. Councillor Hoover?
I'll move that healthcare benefits remain as is.
Made on that motion. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Councillor Taylor?
I'll move item 7, that the wellness health spending account in the amount of $425 per year be extended to council.
Made on that motion. Deputy Mayor?
even though it's a great perk, in my job and in my husband's job, we do not have the healthcare spending account. So I'm not gonna vote in favor of this. I think it's a great perk, but we're here to work with our community. We're still volunteering some of our hours, and $425 to me is quite a bit more, and we need to be a little bit wise with our budget too as a council, so I'm not in favor of that.
Councillor Stanley?
So I will be in favor of this because not only do I have a spouse who works in another municipality who gets a health and wellness spending account that is much more than that, but our staff all receive this as well. It is something that is meant to maintain the wellness of council and mayor so that they can come to work and do their jobs. And I'm sure through especially the pandemic and having a awareness of what COVID can do to someone, potentially putting them in the hospital with pneumonia or other events that could affect council. I think that having a health and wellness spending account, one that is as minor as this, is just something that as a council we should have done years ago. It's in line with what we do with our staff. It's in line with what other municipalities are offering. So I will be in favor of this.
Deputy Mayor?
As part of our benefit package, there is a family, what's it called? Family assistance program. It's a little bit different from my job, so I had to remember what the name of it was. With Chappelle, and they offer a lot of extra perks for free with our benefit plans. So I think there's a lot of use from just what we get as a benefit plan from the benefits that are currently offered. So that's still another reason why I'm not in favor.
Councillor Stanley?
So just another comment, kind of in alignment with what I was saying when we passed the first motion. There are members of council who have no benefits because they have maybe had to change their work hours. They have had to go down to part-time. Potentially they are self-employed, and these are the only benefits that they have. And as we're all aware, anyone who pays to have benefits is aware, there are things that are not covered. And quite often you end up paying out of pocket. And if this little bit can help maintain not only the health and wellness of the people who are on council, but their families as well, so that they are able to come to work, I think that that in itself is a benefit.
Further? Councillor?
I think Councillor Powell was waiting longer.
Thank you. Councillor Powell?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm absolutely in favor of this. I agree with Councillor Spendy. It is, well, in regards to the report, it was in line with other municipalities, but with some other positions, it is quite a bit higher, over the $700 range. So I'm definitely in favor of this. It sort of lines up with the other thing that we had been speaking about a few years ago in regards to Abbey Center memberships for counselors, as it is something that the staff has access to. So I think that this is a great compromise. So I was happy to see it in there.
Councillor Hoover?
I think Councillor Bell covered what I was saying.
Thank you. Is there any other further comments? Councillor Stanley?
I'm prepared to move that the wellness health spending account in the amount of $425 per year be extended to council. Oh, you already moved it. Well, can we go to the vote? She said-
I was going back to my notes here and I was sure that we had a motion.
Consider it seconded.
Thank you for that. So with that, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is just carried. I think that provides the guidance that is requested from administration.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Once again, I'd like to thank Kevin for your leadership on this, and I hope that you have the opportunity to thank the members of your committee on our behalf for their efforts and their work in bringing this forward to council. is very much appreciated. It's never an easy thing either, but it's much easier for you folks to take an objective look than for council to try to make those decisions by ourselves, and we really appreciate your hard work.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Did you want to make another comment, Councillor Pell?
I was just waiting.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Now we'll get back to our regular agenda, and we have the councillor development policy.
Thank you, Worship and Council. We had previously brought this forward to the July 19th Standing Committee, and it was then brought forward to the July 27th regular council meeting, which I was away on vacation, and Director DeBresser had brought it forward for council. There was some minor changes that were requested of council, and they're listed under the discussion. Those changes have been made in the policy, so there is the clean copy as well as the marked up copy showing those changes as requested at the July 27th meeting. Therefore, administration respectively recommending that council formally approve the elected officials development opportunities policy 155-21.
Are there any further, pardon me, are there any questions or debate on that? Councillor Sende.
So I want to say thank you, first of all, because this has come back a couple of times, and I appreciate all the work that went into this. The new copy looks great. That said, I move that council formally approve elected officials development opportunities policy 155/21.
Thank you for that. Is there debate on that motion? All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Next item is special ballot. Who will be speaking on that? Welcome, E.A. Van Woonsen.
The town of Blackfalds will be holding a municipal and school board trustee election on October 18th, 2021. At the July 13th regular council meeting, council directed administration to provide special ballots in the 2021 election. The Local Authorities Election Act requires that a resolution be passed which outlines when special ballot applications will be accepted until, what methods of application acceptance will be utilized, and when they must be returned by. Special ballots, which are also known as mail-in ballots, may be requested by an elector for the following reasons, per the LAEA. Physical disability, absence from the local jurisdiction, or essentially being involved in the election as staff or a scrutineer. To receive a special ballot package, a resident would have to fill out Form 22, which is a request for a special ballot package, which administration would provide online and at the Civic Center starting August 31st. The special ballot package will need to be requested by Friday, October 15th at 4:30 p.m. Electors can choose whether their special ballot package is mailed or can be picked up and filled out in person. Per the LAEA, the application for a special ballot package can be returned to staff via any one or more of the following methods: in writing, by telephone, by fax, in person, or by email. Special ballot packages will be sent out or available for pickup as soon as ballots are finalized, printed, and delivered to the town of Blackfalds. This will be after September 20th. However, the exact date is unknown. The special ballot package must be returned to the Civic Center by 4:30 p.m. on October 18th for the vote to be counted. Electors who pick up the package in person will be encouraged to fill out their special ballot at the Civic Center, as staff can help eliminate barriers to voting, such as photocopying IDs and helping fill out forms. If the voter decides to return their special ballot via mail, administration will include a stamp for it to be returned. To keep the level of service consistent for all voters, the special ballot postage will be through regular mail. However, if the elector wishes to return it via courier or express post instead at their own cost, staff will accept the ballot. The administrative recommendation is that council direct administration to receive special ballot packages in writing, by telephone, fax, email, or in person, and furthermore that special ballot packages must be requested by October 15th at 4:30 p.m. and returned by October 18th at 4:30 p.m.
Thank you for that. Council, are there any questions? Councillor Appel.
Thank you. Just a comment, and I think it's just a tweak in the wording of the recommendation, but it should be that we direct administration to receive special ballot forms in writing, telephone, fax, email, or person. We can't receive the actual packages back through those items. So that would just be my only thought, because when I first read it, I'm like, I don't understand how we're receiving votes through fax. Also because it's not 1993, but furthermore, yeah, that was just we should be requesting forms, not packages.
Deputy Mayor.
I just want to thank you guys for putting this together. I'm sure a lot of our residents will be happy to have this since we didn't have this at prior elections. With that said, if nobody else has any comments, I'm ready to move the administrative recommendation that council direct administration to receive special ballot packages in writing by telephone, fax, email, or in person, and further that the special ballot packages must be requested by October the 15th at 4:30 p.m. and returned by October the 18th at 4:30 p.m.
Thank you for that. Are there any, Councillor Appel?
Sorry, friendly amendment to direct administration to receive special ballot forms.
Yes.
And that's okay?
Yeah.
Debate on the motion? Further debate? All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. And thank you for bringing that back. The Operations Center Water and Wastewater Servicing Connection Project. CO Thompson, who will be presenting on this?
Director Warren, your worship.
Thank you. Director Warren, welcome to the
Thank
podium.
you. Thank you, Mayor and Mayor and Council. So the work of the Operations Center Water and Wastewater Servicing Connection Project is presented tonight to Council. So in 2021, capital budget dollars of $100,000 was budgeted for the installation of the water and wastewater connections and installation of a septic dump and wash station. As part of the budget, we looked at, or as part of the scope of the work, we looked at how we could go ahead and do the detailed design and engineering on this site. So this is the operations building that we recently purchased just off of Duncan Avenue. So currently there is no water and wastewater municipal connection. It is an existing well system with a septic tank off to the west of building A. So when we got into the detailed design of this, we realized that there was a number of additional modifications and changes we wanted to make to the work so that we could ensure that the water and wastewater services were installed properly, as well as we added the addition of a new hydrant and valve adjacent to building B, which wasn't in the previous scope. So we went out for request for proposals for the 2021 water and wastewater connection project. It was advertised on Alberta Purchasing Connection, and we received 6 proposals, with 5 proposals meeting the tendering requirements. So as outlined above, Northside Construction was the low bidder at $153,172.36, which includes 10% contingency but excludes GST. We've had good previous experience with Northside Construction. They're actually one of the subs that are doing the servicing connections for the new Twin Arena, as well as they've done numerous works around the town over the years. So what we're recommending tonight is that the project gets awarded to Northside Construction Project for $153,172.36. And further, that the project be extended by the $53,172.36. And that will be, if council so wishes, that proposed funding source for the project will be a 50-50 split between the water and wastewater utility reserve, which is where the original $100,000 came from. And with that, I'd open up for questions.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
So what I'm reading in the recommendation, to award for the $153,000, but what I'm reading in the document, we were already approved at 100,000. So are you asking for 53,000 more, 153,000 more, or do we have, or is it okay with the motion the way it is?
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. So the motion's okay the way it is. The council move to award the water and wastewater connection project to Northside Construction Partnership for $153,117.36. The big change is the fact that the cost for that additional $153,000 will come from our reserves, which wasn't part of the allocated budget.
Further questions or comments? Councilor Hoover?
And just so I'm clear, the reserve that we're talking about, there is currently a reserve with the commission, am I correct, that is built up every year based on utility or the water payments? Is this a separate entity, this reserve?
The water and wastewater reserve is two separate reserves that we would use to draw that are serviced through our utility rates. So those utility rates every year, a portion of that goes into the reserves to fund capital projects. So this is where we're drawing monies from. So yes, the wastewater reserve portion of our sanitary rates go to that reserve every year to build it up. And then we also use those reserves to fund large capital projects under the water and wastewater categories.
Councilor Hoover was confused with your use of the word commission.
Yeah, it was my understanding that the commission had its own reserve that is built up for the future.
Which commission are you?
Water, the regional water.
This has nothing to do with.
Okay, well, that's what I was looking for clarification. So this is separate from regional.
Yes, Councilor Hoover, we don't carry any reserves for the commission, for the water or the wastewater commission. But the way I was answering it was when we charge residents a portion of those, the $2.50 per cube for wastewater, for instance, a portion of it goes into this reserve for waste or for water, for waste and water.
You were definitely answering it correctly. I just heard the commission, and just for clarification's sake, the Operations Center is not that has nothing to do with the actual commission. It is a separate entity, correct?
That's correct, Your Worship. It is our new operations facility that hosts all of the protective services staff, majority of the administrative staff for public works, as well as parks and facilities. And then further to that, the operations field staff for parks and facilities, as well as public works out of those buildings.
Councilor Stendig?
So I have a comment and then a question. First of all, I think had this been worded a little bit differently, instead of saying a shortfall, my understanding is it's an addition of a couple of items, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, so the wording is just a little bit off, I think. And then I wanted to know, included in those additional things is upsizing the water service line. Can you speak to why we needed to upsize it, just so I have in my head exactly what's going on here?
Yeah, for sure, Councilor Cindy. So normally we bring about a 2-inch water line in to service those two buildings, but because it's a hydrant with a large fire flow, we have to go up to a 6-inch. So essentially the extra cost is for the 6-inch service from a 2-inch service to building B, and then obviously the hydrant itself and the valve and installation.
Perfect, makes sense, thank you.
Are there any other further questions or comments? Councilor Taylor?
I have one comment and I'm prepared to move.
Go ahead.
The savings are fairly substantial with our low bid with Northside Construction. The top bid is $236,000, and the closest one after that, going down, is $183,000. So you're still looking at a $30,000 savings. So I think we've done quite good with our bid process, and I think that value is worth it in itself. So I'd be prepared to move the council award the wastewater connection project to Northside Construction Partnership for $153,172.36.
Thank you for that. And Director Waring, just for a reminder for those who are watching, you referenced that this is per the Town's utility bylaw, that we are actually moving forward with this project. Could you just elaborate on that?
Yes, Your Worship, through our utility bylaw, whenever there is water and wastewater services adjacent to a parcel that is on well or septic, we're working with those landowners to switch them over to municipal water and wastewater. And this is one of about 5 or 6 sites that have yet to be moved from that private well and septic field, which is obviously not quite as environmentally friendly as the municipal water and wastewater. And so we'll connect it onto Duncan and run the buildings as alternative plan.
Thank you. Any further comments or debate? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried unanimously. Thank you for that, Director Waring. And we have the Parkwood Road recommendations from the Policing Committee, and
Manager Morrison, Your Worship.
thank you. Manager Morrison, welcome to the podium.
Good evening, Your Worship and councilors. I bring forward tonight an issue that's come before the Policing Committee on several occasions. Parking of tractors and trailers on Parkwood Road overnight, which has been an issue. It's pros and cons over the years. Currently, there's signage on Parkwood designating the west side of the road as 2-hour daytime parking for trucks from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is reflected in the Town of Blackfalds bylaw 1232/19, known as the traffic bylaw, under the Schedule B truck route. Under the current traffic bylaw, heavy vehicle means any vehicle whose gross vehicle weight exceeds 7,500 kilograms or whose length exceeds 10 meters, height exceeds 4.5 meters. Motorhomes, buses, recreational vehicles are excluded from being considered as heavy vehicles. The current truck route permits parking of trucks on the west side of Parkwood Road from Panorama Drive to Park Street only. Through current signage, this parking zone extends along Parkwood Road between Panorama Drive and Cottonwood Drive. From time to time, we receive complaints of trucks parking overnight along this stretch of Parkwood Road. Over the years, we've received not a lot, but on occasion, when truckers stay for a few days and whatnot, people get a little annoyed, and we do get a call to have a talk with them. On March 3rd, as a result of this, the Parkwood Road parking concern was brought to the Policing Committee. A local property owner had expressed his concern with the increase of truck traffic on that stretch of road between Panorama and Cottonwood. The owner was concerned that this made it appear like an industrial area, not what it was intended to be, and he felt this would deter potential business owners from leasing property in this area. It should be noted that this time it was kind of an anomaly, as a company within the community was actually doing some activity, and it was over a 2 to 3 week period where their truckers were actually using the local hotel. They were working overnight, and then they were coming in during the day, sleeping, and just kind of going all around the clock. So there was anywhere from 8 to 10 trucks parked there pretty consistently. This, when the work was done, the traffic seems to have slowed down and the parking seems to have slowed down for the most part. As a result of the meeting on March 3rd with the policing committee, a recommendation was passed to investigate into designating the stretch of Parkwood Road north of Panorama Drive as heavy truck designated parking. That same month, with the assistance of the town's marketing communications, Marcom, a survey was developed. It was felt that by providing local businesses in that specific area a survey as to their opinion as to what they felt with reference to the parking of the trucks. So on March 18th, a survey was provided to business owners for them to complete and return. On May 10th, having received as many surveys back as we felt would be coming in, a analysis was done, and it was determined that 70% of business owners that had been surveyed advised they would be in favor of designated parking for heavy trucks. I believe the survey results were provided, as well as the questions that were put forward. It's a very simple survey. We wanted to make sure that people actually responded and brought them back. We didn't want it to be onerous, and we wanted it in keeping with the idea behind the whole parking. So on July 21st, this parking heavy vehicles on Parkwood Road was brought again to the policing committee with the findings from the survey. And as a result of the discussion that occurred, a motion was put forward and passed to propose to council a pilot project of 1 year, allowing the parking of trucks from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the designated locations. Many of the current business owners in this area expressed positive comments with allowing the parking and appreciated the added business that resulted. There was mostly positive comments in response to whether businesses were in favor of designated parking for heavy trucks along the northwest portion of Parkwood. And at this time, I'd like to kind of emphasize that we're simply talking from Parkwood or from Panorama to Cottonwood, not the area from Park to Panorama. We're talking that area where the Microtel and all those are. The policing committee recommendation on July 21st was to introduce 1 year pilot project where heavy vehicles would be allowed to park between that specific area. This pilot project would be utilized to determine the actual impact allowing parking in this area through ongoing monitoring at the location on Parkwood Road, as well as monitoring and tracking complaints coming in both through business owners and residents possibly affected by this change. Again, there's not a lot of residents immediately in that vicinity. However, there may be some repercussions from the residents, so we'll be monitoring that, any complaints coming in, and we'd encourage anyone that does hear of any issues to bring them forward so we can kind of tally those over the period of time, if this is brought to fruition. Financial implications, signage would be needed to be changed, as well as an amendment to the traffic bylaw, which really would result in minimal costs to the town to see this pilot project forward. At this time, administration recommendation would be that council accepts the recommendation of the policing committee in implementing a 1 year pilot allowing the parking of heavy trucks overnight between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. in designated areas on Parkwood Road between Panorama Drive and Cottonwood Drive. Alternatives, council does not accept recommendation of the policing committee on this matter, or the council refer it back to administration for further action.
Thank you for that. 3 hands all at once. I will start on the far right with Councilor Stenday.
So I like the idea of offering our truckers a place to pull over and stop for the night, especially knowing that it provides business to the hotel and some of the food services in the area. My concern is that currently there is 2-hour parking there around the clock. If we're changing it to only 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., are we maybe taking away some of that business that they receive during the daytime with people who pop in for 20 minutes to grab a bite to eat and then they're on their way again?
I think the idea, and I guess maybe I wasn't overly clear, the idea is still to have the 2-hour parking during the
Perfect.
daytime.
Okay.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Thanks for that question, Councillor Stenny.
Very,
That was
very good
something
point,
I was gonna ask. I was just curious also, how many surveys came back?
Great question. I think we were only missing one from the group that we surveyed. And again, we only surveyed those that would be immediately affected, the ones from Panorama to Cottonwood on the side of the road there.
That's good.
Councillor Powell?
Well, those were my 2 questions. However, I had a third note. So when we were talking about this survey, there was also a little bit of discussion in regards to Parkwood from Park Street to Panorama. So the south part that doesn't allow any of that parking. Was there any discussion to include that there or to include any of those businesses?
Currently that, I believe there's still the 2-hour parking on those areas. There was a lot of discussion. It was felt that at this time for the pilot project, we would keep it fairly small to see how it works and to see if it's something that the community wants to continue. But there was a lot of discussion about that stretch, but it is a fairly busy stretch.
My only thought being that I wonder, until it's impacting your business directly, it would be interesting to know their thoughts as well, because I know that, while there are certainly businesses that that this is helping, like the ones, that we've discussed, some of the food services in the hotel, there are other businesses that it's not helping. So I do like the idea of a 1-year pilot project to see. So I'll be definitely voting in favor of this, but I just, I thought it might be interesting after the 1 year to expand that and see what people's views are.
To expand the survey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, absolutely. That's a great idea, I think.
Because if it were happening in front of their business, you might have had a lot more responses as well. Because there are more businesses between that stretch than the further up.
Most definitely, but traditionally the problem with the parking for longer durations is that stretch between Panorama and Cottonwood.
Councillor Olford?
If this was to go through, would there be any possibility of adding that survey into the monitoring for between Panorama and Park and just asking the businesses, this is what we're doing north of you, can you keep us in the loop if you see anything that might be negatively or positively affecting the area?
Oh, absolutely, and another thing we may want to consider is just notifying the residents to the east of Parkwood as well, to see if there's any issues that arise for them. The only thing I can think of is possibly noise with trucks running, but we don't seem to have a problem with them running for the most part now. But if they're there for all night and have permission, possibly that might happen, but that's again something we would have to really kind of monitor.
Any further questions or comments? So Deputy Mayor?
I I'm ready to move the administrative recommendation that council accepts the recommendation of the policing committee in implementing a 1-year pilot allowing the parking of heavy trucks and overnight between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. in the designated areas on Parkwood Road between Panorama Drive and Cottonwood Drive.
Thank you for that. Is there any further debate on that motion? Councillor Taylor?
Not debate, just a comment on the survey was well done. And, out of the 40% yes comments, that it affected their business in that section, most of it was pretty complimentary to the business of them stopping. So it is kind of good to get a full context on what people are feeling with that, and I think you guys did a good job.
Not seen any more debate. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
We have no action correspondence this evening. We will move on to the information items. 8.1, report to council, building and development permit report. Questions? 8.2, report to council enforcement services monthly report. 8.3, Bolt Transit Report. 8.4, Broadway Avenue, Minto Street Traffic Control Update. And CO Thompson.
Yes, Your Worship, Director Warren will provide a little bit of more insight on this matter.
Are we okay with?
Yeah, he can do this thing first.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, council and the mayor. So, thanks again for discussing this matter at the last council meeting. It was really good information to take back and talk about this. So, during the 2020 budget deliberations, funds were allocated to demo the houses and build the parking lot around the new Twin Arena. As part of that work, we purchased a set of movable flashing pedestrian signals in anticipation of the traffic flow going across Broadway Avenue. So we had gotten those traffic signals so that patrons, when they're using the arena while Broadway Avenue is open, were protected from the traffic coming through there. Unfortunately, with the COVID and the restrictions, that didn't occur. Since installing those signals, and since we've now moved forward with the construction of the Eco Builders Center and the parking lot around that area, those signals were repurposed to go at the intersection of Minto and Broadway Avenue at the existing four-way stop. So through that process, we had met with the principal about a year ago, and then we actually brought this forward to the December 2nd policing committee. And it was shared at that time that we had anticipated removing the northbound and southbound two-way stops in order to make the four-way stop down to a two-way stop only, and then have the push buttons that would activate the signalized pedestrian crossing at that location. Further to the improvements in this area, a number of years ago, we moved the bus pickups off Broadway Avenue in anticipation of some of the traffic concerns in here. And further to that, we actually installed a set of these exact same pedestrian beacons just at the next block south of this, which would be Shaw and Broadway. So overall, the traffic in this area, the traffic patterns will be changed quite a bit come September 1st. So through the discussion with council as well as internal discussions with our engineering and enforcements, we've decided to leave the four-way stop signs in place for now. Thank you for those comments, council. Further, it is of note that we were talking a bit about where the policy references are in relation to stop signs. So that's located under the traffic marking policy. However, there's no removal of stop sign situation noted, so it's only to install a new stop sign. That can be done by either council or administration. And what we're recommending is that this situation has definitely highlighted the fact that we need to bring this policy forward and just provide some clarification around what we need to do when these types of situations arise. We also discussed notification and relaying this information practice under this policy that we've revised under the traffic safety or the traffic marking policy, or we could look at integrating that into communications policy. So overall, our plan moving forward is to put batteries in and turn lights on and see how it works for the next year. And then if we feel like there is lots of time delays from people stopping there, we will address it in the future.
Deputy Mayor?
So I have a couple questions. One's from one of the residents, and then one is something that I found that I needed to bring up. So one of our residents had asked about the power issue with the solar lights that would be powered for the pedestrian lights. In the past, there was a set of lights installed there quite a few years ago, and it did give enough power. I know we have about 5 sets of lights now in town. Is it going to be similar to the ones we have? Is there going to be a power failure?
Yes, thanks for that, Councillor Swallow, Deputy Mayor Swallow, I believe. So what happened is about 4 or 5 years ago, we moved the downtown pedestrian old solar style lights, which were not LED and not, lithium batteries and the like, and they were very, very primitive, let's say. We moved them over there to try to see if that would work. But because of the poor quality of that set of lights, we decided to take them down because they weren't connecting with each other. There was solar issues, just because of the fact that that was kind of old technology. So yes, these new rapid flashing beacons are, say, the generation 2. We've had them implemented over on Womax as well as Cottonwood, and they seem to do quite great over the last couple of years that we've had them through those winter months. So we're not anticipating the same problem here.
And then my next question, a lot of the people on Facebook and the ones that have emailed us had asked for public consultation. And I remember reading something from when I had done my crime prevention through environmental design course, which brings back SAFE again, which is, it was done in 2015. When I was on the policing committee a few years ago, I asked for it to be brought back. So what SAFE stands for is the S stands for strength, social capacity, the A stands for active neighbors, the F stands for focus on community engagement, and the E is effect positive change. So this was our public consultation on safety in our community. And the school stop sign was actually part of that process, and people in the community loved having that stop sign, wanted it there. And in this document, it says it was put there for traffic calming. So if you are considering removing the stop sign next time, if you're able to either look at the report, maybe we need to do another SAFE in before this happens. It also recommended a traffic study be done there as well at that corner, and I don't believe it ever has been. So I do think that this is something, if this comes back, it needs to be looked at properly. So thank you.
Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, through the chair to Director Ward. So I have experience of these lights in the city of Red Deer, working for the district on 40th Avenue for Eastview. These things are amazing. They work, they stop things. They are super safe, and I compliment in putting them in. One of the concerns I have with this is, I remember when we used to have a public works committee, and one of the reasons why we said we wouldn't have a public works committee is we would have discussions on items through our standing committee. And it seems like we're starting to get circumvent that standing committee. And this, over 20 years of being a council, the school comes up every year. It's a concern. And for us to be kind of not necessarily in the loop when it goes to the policing committee, it makes me think about, I don't want to go back to a public works committee, but making sure that we're in the loop in the beginning, because those discussions probably, we would not have got the comments back on Facebook, and because we probably had a better discussion in the beginning, which is, it's okay. Sometimes we put the cart in front of the horse, but I'm just thinking, just in principle, what we said, why we got rid of the Public Works Committee was that we would be utilizing our committee. And in the beginning, you would see a foreman come occasionally to our standing committee, and it seems like we're moving away from that. So it's something to consider, when things come forward, is this something? Now, if you would change the yield sign down at the transfer station to a stop sign, I don't think anybody would have noticed. But in that particular location where it's always been a hot spot, it would have been a good practice to have that come to a standing committee so we could have had a good discussion.
Director Ware?
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Councillor Taylor. Yeah, we do bring a lot of things to standing committee. I know the engineering design department as well as public works strives to inform council of all the things that are going on. This is really just another step in trying to improve that area. The traffic patterns will change in there with the addition of that pedestrian stop movement. And quite frankly, we looked at it from other areas of town. So for instance, the one at Cottonwood does not have a stop sign before you cross the road. The one over at Womack does not have a stop sign when you cross the road. And it does provide more of a stop-start sort of traffic flow in there, which obviously is going to impact the clearing out of those PM and AM, maximum periods. But really, I think the best path forward is to bring back that traffic safety policy and just outline clearly what's in there and what's not, because like you say, there's some discrepancy there as to when council should be informed, when they should be part of the decision-making process, and when it's ultimately council's decision to make. So we'll be happy to bring back that policy, and I think it would be a good one for the new council to cut their teeth on.
Yeah, I just want to thank Councillor Ware for bringing up, that's one of the other points that I never wrote down, but traffic flow is going to change dramatically. It was last term we talked about that school there was going to be built on the other side, and it was going to be, so everything was going to change. And at some point that will change. One of the big flow changes will be when we connect down to our business section on the other side, traffic flows are going to change. And at some point, that area will be less a concern because the flow will come a different way and there will be some concern. So to do anything of a major expense right now, knowing that the changes are going to happen there, it is a good point. That is going to change, whether it's the next 4 years or whether it's the next 6 years, I don't know.
Councillor Powell?
Thank you. So yeah, I went through my notes and I couldn't find anything that spoke about the stop signs being removed at Minto Street. The only references I found over the past year were about the flashing lights going up at Broadway and Shul, which they are there now and they're great. I also was unable to find the policing committee minutes from that, and I'm not sure if I don't know if anyone else was able to find them, but possibly administration could have them sent to us, just because I don't recall. I feel like if more than one of us had read that, it would have triggered something and we would have discussed it. And then my other comment was just similar to Councillor Taylor. I realized that typically traffic patterns are not a subject that council discusses, but this particular situation being a elementary school right on our main street where we've already, reduced speed limits to help safety, I think it is an important situation. It really is right on our main street. So I'm glad that administration was willing to listen to our comments that we brought forward in the last meeting. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Councillor Stenday?
Thank you. I have two questions. One, in regards to the stop sign, the large one, the overhanging trees, have we spoken with the homeowner about getting those trimmed so that you can actually see the stop sign? Because the stop sign is larger than me, and I've driven past it a couple of times since this first came up, and it is very difficult to see with all of the trees, branches hanging over the sidewalk and covering the stop sign. And we did receive photos showing that from several residents asking that they be trimmed. So I'm just wondering where we're at dealing with that homeowner.
Yeah, we haven't reached out to the homeowner yet, Councillor Sunday, but I know we do go through the areas and any place where we do have low-hanging trees, we trim them back. Like for instance, when we installed those lights at Shaw and Broadway, we did talk to the homeowner about those trees trimmed back, so we will. You're talking about south now, right?
Yes.
At the northeast corner or the northwest corner of the intersection.
Yes, so not in front of the church, across the street.
So we're still trying to get people to cut down weeds, but we'll definitely.
Yeah, and I understand it can be really difficult dealing with homeowners sometimes. Maybe they have different work hours or whatever. I was just wondering where we were at with that. And then my second question, in regards to enforcement, is council going to be provided with some kind of a report as to how many hours or the times of day that enforcement is actually at that school? Just seeing as, I mean, we just hired another bylaw officer. This is something that has come up not just in council meetings with our council, but previous councils, because as Councillor Appel stated, this school and that particular intersection has been a bit of a problem area for quite some time. I'm just wondering, in September, October, if they are going to be doing additional monitoring, if council will receive a report, not just on what their findings are, but how many man hours are going into that as well, please.
Yeah, I direct that to CEO Warner.
CEO Thompson?
Definitely, in our enforcement services report, we can have approximate time period for that month that is spent there. I know a fair amount of time during the school year is spent in the mornings there just to alleviate any concerns. And so as doing that, we'll monitor the time provided to council for their knowledge.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes, so I wanted to follow up with what Councillor Stendy has said about the trees as well. It looks like he possibly may have cut back some of them, but they're still hanging over the stop sign. In the safe report, it recommended that they be trimmed back, and there should be sight lines of up to 8 feet. So if he could do that, or if the town can assist him, because that tree is really bad.
Yeah, Councillor Swab, we've definitely done that in the past. And it's usually about this time when we do those last little bit of trees with the lights, but yeah, we'll dig into that for sure.
Okay, and then my last one was, I know as a council, we had talked about speed humps being put in possibly, and seeing how bad that the traffic is down there speeding through it, not only during school hours, but all times of day. If there is no possibility of us getting a new elementary school anytime soon, I'm wondering if there should be 2 speed humps put on those 2 crosswalks to slow traffic down, just to keep our kids safe.
Yeah, and we could definitely talk about that in future budgets. If you're looking at some sort of raised crosswalk like in Silver Lake downtown, that's in the neighborhood of $20,000 for each one, which we could definitely do. There's other options for traffic calming that we could look at, like, extending those pedestrian bulbs out at the end. But that being said, we've had pretty good conformance with the flashing beacons. And then I think also to just generally in all of our school zones, we need to keep pushing to make sure people are slowing down. I know September is back to school safety month for the province, and then October is pedestrian safety month. So I know I just recently requested that marketing do a little bit of blitz around there like we do every year for that back to school sort of time. But yes, we could look at that in the future. It would just be a matter of budget allocation and the fact that that would probably have to be integrated to other school areas.
Councillor Hoover?
Maybe a little more general, a couple of things come to mind for me in terms of traffic studies. One of them was brought up already with the elementary school. The other is the Great Street realignment. Either of those situations necessitate us to do a traffic study for how those things are going to impact. Obviously with the school moving to the other side, I would assume that there's going to be an impact. Do we have a study as part of that site evaluation? And then again, with the Great Street realignment, will that necessitate a traffic study of Broadway in general?
So thank you for those questions, Councillor Hoover. So essentially every 10 years we do the traffic master plan. So that is a 10-year document and it's due in 2025. So that looks at a lot of the busy intersections, including, I believe, Broadway and Minto and the like. What it comes down to is traffic flow and integration with pedestrians. So there isn't a specific traffic impact analysis done on that specific corridor of traffic through the AM and the PM peaks, which are your pickup and drop off times for the schools. So they're different than our normal AM and PM peaks, which are usually in alignment with people going to work and dropping off their kids and the like. So a little bit different of a situation, but we would, as part of some of these overarching reviews, especially in the 2025 traffic management plan, we would look at some of these problematic areas, if you want to call them that, and then further to the traffic patterns will change quite a bit because of the the Great Street and Womack's realignment, as well as just some of the changes around the Twin Marina there. So we will evaluate, each time we do that, we evaluate between 80 and 100 intersections to ensure that the signals and the laneways are properly sized so that vehicles can get in and out of there. But I think we probably want to look at a strong focus on pedestrian movements in our next traffic master plan, which we've kind of indicated we want to look at that back when we did it last time in 2015. So I don't know if that answered your question or not. But
Well, you said that, so this is something that will come up in 2025, regardless of these other projects. So there's nothing that will be done because of these projects. I seem to get.
That's right, Councillor Hoover. So we would monitor the eastbound and westbound and northbound and southbound turning movements at key intersections. And then we would actually, before we did the traffic master plan, looking at some of those key intersections, we would actually do traffic counts and look at some of this data that we're talking about right now. And then we would say to council, well, these intersections are a priority, let's look at them in a little bit more detail, or these intersections over here are more priority.
Councillor Oakley?
Yeah, just want to say thanks to administration for leaving the stop signs in. I understand it's a huge balancing act between movement and safety. Every town has these pockets where nothing seems to work. I'm glad we're looking at different options, and maybe something that we need to look further out and go into really high density communities and see what they're doing around their schools and that work in terms of trying to get the maximum traffic movement with ultimate safety.
Yeah, and I guess further to that, Councillor Olford, we've been trying to work with the school as well as the residents in the area to try to come up with that sort of ideal situation. But really, it would be nice to have crossing guards at some of those intersections to help kind of improve the safety as well too, but that hasn't really worked well in the past, so we've kind of gone beyond that. But yes, and further to this, discussion, we are also going to talk to our engineering consultants as well as to see if they've got some sort of silver bullet or at least something to help mitigate these concerns. But really, when you have a whole bunch of traffic and a whole bunch of pedestrians being picked up and dropped off in one area, really the key is to just slow down and look out for everybody, right? Where everybody's all busy, on their phones and moving around and trying to pick up kids, but really it needs to be a strong focus for our marketing and education to ensure that those people are paying attention, especially in these, school areas.
Any further questions or comments? Thank you very much, Director Warren, for providing, I think, a lot more feedback than just what was in your report. I think a lot of ground was passed and consideration from administration for a number of different issues.
Great, thank you, and I appreciated the 95 plus comments on social media. I read everyone.
Thank you. So, last information item, 2021 gas tax funding allocation letter from the Minister of Municipal Affairs. We receive this annually, and this is in line with our past allotments, correct?
Actually, Your Worship, there's an additional top-up of $580,000
That's right.
that we hadn't expected at budget time, so that's welcome news. Administration's had some preliminary discussion on application of these funds in next year's capital budget. One of the things we know that the new fire pumper, for instance, would meet the requirements of this grant. So this will give us a little reprieve on our capital funding and assist in that going forward. So we're very pleased with that.
Thank you. We now need a motion to accept the information items. Cindy,
I'll move to accept the information items as information.
made on that motion, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We have no round table. We'll move on to the adoption of the minutes, regular council meeting minutes from June 22nd, 2021. Are there any errors or omissions? Not seeing any. Councillor Pell,
Thank you. I'm prepared to move that the minutes are accepted as presented.
debate on the motion, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We have no notices of motion this evening. Under the good of council, I do want to make one announcement. I would like to inform council that Habitat for Humanities has announced that they will be building another 4 units in Blackfalds. It was just announced today, and I think that it's something that we can be very excited about. Councillor Spinday.
That is very exciting. I have a good of the council as well. It's a question about, there has been some rather inappropriate graffiti around town, including lately on our elementary school. It's on the park benches, almost every park bench on the west side. I understand there was some incidences at the Abbey Center as well. And I'm just curious if we could maybe inform the public again about our policies in regards to graffiti and where they can find things to remove said graffiti if it happens on their property or if they happen to notice it anywhere.
Thank you for that. CEO Thompson, did you have knowledge of that? And
Yes, Your Worship. We've traditionally got materials from Central Alberta Crime Prevention Center. Some very good materials to remove that sort of thing. 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago, we had an abundance of graffiti, but since then, it has been reduced. So we're troubled here that we're having some more, so we will take care of it and use some communication to see if we can curtail that activity.
Thank you for that. Are there any other further items for the good of the council? Council Sunday.
So just for clarification, if someone were to notice vandalism on, say, private property, they could go to the RCMP station to pick up those graffiti removal?
Manager Morrison, were you part of that process in providing materials?
Municipal enforcement has some,
Okay,
but also Parks and Facilities has some as well.
perfect.
So usually Parks and Facilities will come out and not necessarily clean private residences, that's their responsibility, but usually we'll help them with providing those.
Wonderful. That's good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Olford.
Just on this note too, I have something else, but did we not have graffiti removal materials here at the town office that residents could pick up? Because it used to be, because I have used it myself, and it's a wonderful product. And I do believe we had small packages here at the office to give residents.
I'm not aware that we did, Councillor Olford, but I'll check. But I think they were dispensed by Parks and Facility, but we'll double check.
Councillor Pell.
It might have been at a, like an event, because I recall getting some little, like graffiti, they were here. Okay. I thought it was at an event somewhere that was held and they provided them, like it was a trade show or
Yeah, I
something.
think they did that.
Yeah,
So possibly we could look at Marcom putting out a little bit of an information brochure if there is an increase, both what they can do and also some comments maybe by local enforcement and different persons regarding how it might be eliminated or reduced.
Definitely, Your Worship.
Thank you for that, Council.
One more.
And one more, Councillor Olford.
Yeah, I'll be away at the next council meeting. I'm going to take him over the holiday.
Have a good time. For our viewers, it is now time for council to move from its open agenda into council's closed agenda. Thank you for watching and have a good evening. And Deputy Mayor?
I'll move for a 5-minute break.